Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Joan Neal, and I am the Deputy Executive Director and Chief Equity Officer at Network, and I am also an associate of the National Black Sisters Conference. It's my honor to serve this 52-year-old social justice organization founded by Catholic sisters that has been a steadfast advocate for a more just and equitable society by educating, organizing, and lobbying at the federal level, work that seems really critical right now. Because, you know, our country and our politics are being beset by existential threats and daunting challenges. But we see the work of Network and the witness of Catholic sisters overall as a sign of hope. So, when we, Network, approach this year, discerning the signs of the times, we ask, what is ours to do at this point in our country's history? Because, you know, it seems that many people today are determined to create a landscape of despair and obstruction and abuse of power to prevent us here in the United States from meeting the challenges and the opportunities that are before us to promote justice and equity in our society. Some people want us to feel discouraged, tired, and willing to give up the freedoms of a thriving democracy. But you know what we know? We know that no matter who we are, no matter our race, religion, gender, or economic status, we all want the same things for ourselves and for our loved ones. We want the freedoms that only a vibrant democracy affords its people. And that's why we at Network discern that what our country needs now and what we can provide is hope. Yep. And that hope is in the form of the nuns on the bus. Since 2012, you know, Network has worked to promote a better kind of politics, as Pope Francis has asked us to do, through the witness of the nuns on the bus. We have called for passing moral budgets, mending the gaps, and reminding people of the all-important reality that who we elect actually matters. And so after 6 years off the road, we realize that once again, the country sorely needs what sisters can offer. And more than that, today we also acknowledge the long-standing fact that sisters have always worked in collaboration with other justice seekers. So for the first time in our history, this tour, this Vote Our Future tour, features the nuns on the bus and friends. We are so delighted to be on the road with our multi-faith and secular partners, and you will hear from some of them shortly. In our 2.5-week nonpartisan nationwide tour, we will be calling on Catholics and all people of goodwill to be multi-issue voters and to protect the freedoms that promote a future of flourishing for all of us. As we embark on this tour, on this Vote Our Future tour, we have one value that is foremost in our minds: freedom. You know, Catholic social teaching talks a great deal about freedom because it's really important. If we lack freedom, then we do not have what we need to make true moral choices, including the choice to live into the potential and into the dream that God has for all of us. So we are traveling to encourage all people to choose freedom and vote our future. And so now as we begin, please welcome Rabbi Jason Kimelman-Block, Washington Director of Bend the Arc Jewish Action and Bend the Arc, a Jewish Partnership for Justice, who will give our opening prayer. Rabbi Jason.
Good morning, everyone. Wednesday night marks the beginning of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. It is the beginning of a 10-day period of intense introspection. It's a time when we have the opportunity to examine our actions of the past year and see the gap between how we would like to be and how we actually behave. One of the key symbols of Rosh Hashanah, of the Jewish New Year, is the shofar, the ram's horn. We sound this shofar not only on the holiday itself, but every morning in the month leading up to the holiday, including this morning. Its symbolism is incredibly rich, and I'd like to share a few ideas of what that sound can mean to us before we sound it here. One is that the sound of the shofar is a cry. We hear the shofar sound the simple wail of those who are suffering. The shofar is also a call to repentance. As we hear it, we examine our deeds and we resolve to change. The shofar is also a call to justice. The Torah teaches us to sound the shofar and proclaim liberty throughout the land. And so my prayer for us this morning is that this sound and our words today move hearts and minds here in Philadelphia, throughout Pennsylvania, and across this country to take responsibility for this society through mobilizing and voting our values at this critical time, so that we may at last narrow the gap between this country's amazing ideals and its harsh reality. In Joshua's time, it was the sound of the shofar that brought down the walls of Jericho. Today, may it be our votes and our mobilizing that tear down the walls of fear, the walls of division, and the walls of oppression. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Jason. And so it's my pleasure to introduce a great friend to Network, Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, representing Pennsylvania's 5th District. Congresswoman.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. So good to see so many friends of social justice, so many friends of the hard work that has to be done in our communities to make sure that everyone is respected, everyone has their dignity recognized. So really thrilled to be here today. So important the work that Network is doing with this bus launch to remind us that it's a choice. It's a choice whether we have community and the common good as our guideposts rather than chaos and dysfunction, and that we get to make that choice at the ballot box. So we really appreciate that reminder. So proud to partner with all of the wonderful folks here who we see in so many different sectors across our community. Above all, I've been so taken with this project. It was introduced to a number of us in DC a few months back, and jumped right on board because it sounded like exactly what we need in this time, to take a step back from the chaos, take a step back from the personalities, and say, okay, what is it we value as Americans? What is it we value in character? And let's make those our guideposts and cut through the noise and get out there and do the hard work of respecting our democracy. So thank you to everyone who's here today. It is such an honor to be here, and looking forward to seeing the trip across the country. So thank you. with that, I'm going to call up my colleague in Congress, Representative Brendan Boyle.
Let's hear for my good friend and partner, Mary Gay Scanlon. Hey, excuse me. And I thought I saw you there. Sister Mary, I know we're going to hear from you later, but it's wonderful to be with the driving force for so many years between Project Home. She may be retired from that job, but she's not retired from activism in life. That's Sister Mary Scullion. I know there are many special people here, and what a large crowd that we have, and I have to say I find it inspiring. But there is one special group, and forgive me, I'm a bit partial, that I just have to recognize. If you see this banner, Sisters of St. Joseph of Philadelphia, I am a proud graduate of 16 years of Catholic education, from first grade at St. Helena's in the Olney neighborhood of the city, all the way through my senior year at the University of Notre Dame. But 8 of those 16 years, I was taught by the Sisters of St. Joseph. So thank you. And let me say, all these years later, sisters, I respectfully apologize if sometimes I got out of line. Although it was good preparation for serving in Congress, I will say. Well, you know, we're here at another election time, but I want to take a step back for a second. One of the major issues when Donald Trump was president from 2017 to January 2021, in fact, his number one priority, and I bring this up because the best way you can predict future behavior is to look at past behavior. His number one goal, what he spent almost all of 2017 on, and I'm afraid some people have forgotten this, was attempting to repeal Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Obamacare, through the exchanges and the Medicaid expansion and other protections, today in the United States is responsible for more than 30 million Americans having health care. It would not have happened without Nuns on the Bus and this religious community. Well, guess what? That issue is again on the ballot this election, because make no mistake about it, the only concept of a plan Donald Trump has is to take away health care from tens of millions of Americans, and we can't let him get away with it. The other major priority, in fact, the only major piece of legislation he was able to get passed when he was president, was giving a $2 trillion tax cut, most of which went to the richest 1%. Now, I know some of my friends on the other side believe that in the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes it says, blessed are the tax cuts for the millionaires and the billionaires. But that, in fact, is not what it says. We know better. And let us not allow the other side to get away with their claims that somehow they are the real values voters in this country. It is patently false. It is my values, coming from a Catholic perspective, that prompted me to become a Democrat, that prompted me to believe that we can use government as a force for good in our country, to bring people together, to unite us and provide more opportunity, to help the poor and all of those who have been left behind and who are craving more opportunity in our society. So I have to say what an enthusiastic supporter I am of Nuns on the Bus, of the Sisters Religious, of all faiths, of all of those who are voting their values in this election and in every election. We need to do more of it, especially here in Pennsylvania. This is the kickoff, I believe, of this tour. There is no more important state in which to have that kickoff. Just think, 0.5% decided that 2016 election. That's 1 out of every 200 people. The 2020 election, it was 1% in this state. And it was the winners of Pennsylvania, both 2016 and 2020, that went on to the White House. So we only have now 5 weeks. It's hard to believe, 36 days. Let's go out there. Let's work hard. Let's vote our values. And let's make sure we get people in elective office who reflect those good and decent values. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Boyle, and thank you, Congresswoman Scanlon. Who we elect does matter, and I think that these two congresspeople that represent Philadelphia are shining examples of how elected officials can make a difference. So we're so grateful and proud to be here with both of you today. And we're also grateful and proud to be with so many faith leaders here in Philadelphia who are committed to the vision of Dr. Martin Luther King of building a beloved community where everyone is valued. This powerful vision needs to be put into action, which has been the mission of Network, organizing around the issues of basic human needs. So thank you, Joan, and to all your colleagues here at Network and all of us that are supportive of Network. This is so critically important. It's also the mission of Donna Bullock, who's here today, the new CEO of Project Home, my boss, and the Project Home community, as well as Bishop Royster and the Faith in Action Network and Mary Graham from the Children's Village. These are all great organizations here in the city of Philadelphia that depend upon federal policies that are effective, just, and inclusive. So it's the task of all of us to vote for our future when we go into the voting booths on November 5th. We know the importance of federal public policies. They make the difference between life and death. And I'm going to want to introduce another member of the Project Home community, Anthony Gully, who's going to share a quick story, his story.
Hello, how you guys doing this morning? My name is Anthony. I like to go by Anthony G because that's the artist in me. However, to quicken the point, I was once homeless out in Pennypack Park. You know where Frankfurt and Solly is? I was there for a while. And if it wasn't for the outreach team of Project Home, you know, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys today. And it's totally changed my life. Affordable housing is so necessary. There's many people in my position or that were in my position, and we need help. However, we need to be ready. We need to acknowledge the fact that you're willing to help us and give us something, and we need to be ready for it. But I need you to know that it's people out there like myself that's looking for that same help and ready to go for it, ready to accept what you have for them. So what we need to really do is get ourselves out here and vote. Whatever it is you're asking for, whatever it is you think needs to be done, don't sit back and say, oh, it's just going to happen. No, it's not. You need to get yourself out there and do something about it. Whatever it is you feel think should happen, whatever should come about, it's going to take you to step in there and vote for it. And just be proud of what's going on, you know, because there's people out here that want to help and want to make some things happen. And don't think that you're alone in this matter. You know, just know that we can do it. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. When we vote, we make a statement for the kind of nation we want to be. We're here today because we yearn for that American dream, for the ideal of equal opportunity for all, for liberty and justice for all. Our country needs you. Please vote for our future on November 5th. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce the president of the Philadelphia AFL-CIO, Danny Berger. Sorry about that.
Good morning. Let's try that one again. Good morning. All right. I know that there's many other distinguished speakers, including several who spend time in the pulpit who probably get a better reaction than me. I want to welcome the Nuns on the Bus and friends to the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. We're so happy to have you here in Philadelphia, the birthplace of American democracy, lest we forget, lest we lose it. But we won't lose it this year. We're voting for our future. Congressman Boyle laid out the margins and the tight voter splits in this Commonwealth. And it is so true. The road to Pennsylvania Avenue runs through Pennsylvania. And I'm thankful for any sort of attention that's going to be paid to the importance of engaging voters and engaging people in the political process. For those of you who may not be registered to vote, you've got time. You've got a few weeks left that you can still register to vote. You can register online. You can request your mail-in ballot online, and you can drop it off at any post office or at one of the satellite voting centers that we have here in the city. You can even request one of those mail-in ballots at a satellite voting center and vote right there in person, bank your vote, so that you know that your voice will be counted. And then once you do those things, it's very important for you to talk to your neighbors, your family, your friends, your faith community, and get them motivated to vote. There's so much on the line in this election, and I'm not going to belabor the point. Other folks who can articulate it much better than I can, like Anthony, can talk about individual issues that we all care about, and to help underscore the importance of not only all of you getting out and voting, but all of you making sure that your friends, family, neighbors are doing the same thing. I'm tickled to be here with the sisters and their friends, and especially with the Sisters of St. Joseph. As the Congressman alluded, while I did not attend one of their institutions, I am a product of Catholic education, very proud of that. And my son is a student at a Sisters of St. Joseph school in Philadelphia. And I see some of my fellow parishioners from St. Vincent de Paul here. So good to see all of you. And it's refreshing, uplifting, empowering to see friends in spaces like this where we're talking about the hard work that's ahead of us. And we're going to do that hard work. We're already doing it. The Philadelphia Council's knocked on 50,000 doors of union members in Philadelphia as of this date. We've got another 100 or so thousand to go, and we're going to do it. We're going to hit all of them. We're engaged in all sorts of nonpartisan voter outreach around the city, and our counterparts across the state are doing the same thing. Everyone loses when we don't vote, and everyone wins when we do. And so, as has been said, regardless of what your major issue is, regardless of what it is that may motivate you to get to the polls, it's important that you do it, but then it's just as important for you to bring those friends and family, neighbors with you as well. And so once again, welcome to Philadelphia. We're thrilled to have you, and I'm excited to introduce one of the bus riders who's going to be traveling on this tour across the country from the Sisters of Charity, Sister Romina Sapinoso. Sister Romina.
Good morning. My name is Sister Romina, and I am a Sister of Charity of Cincinnati. As a Catholic sister, I believe in the sanctity of life. And as a faithful citizen of this country, I am called to engage and consider the many issues that affect the quality of every person's life. I ride the bus because the issues that network brings to light emphasize the value of human life. Valuing human life means investing in people's development and well-being through education, healthcare, and safety, among others, so each person has the best chance to reach their full potential, no matter where they come from, the color of their skin, their gender identity, etc. Labels and categories that are sometimes used to divide and create others among us. I ride the bus because I believe we need leaders who will invest in people by upholding policies which pave the way for each of us to be healthy, safe, and cared for at every stage of life. I ride the bus because when we invest in people, they in turn help create supportive communities and thriving cities, a ripple effect that consequently creates a better country for all of us. I remember a dear friend, Jessica, who I met when I was first getting to know the Sisters of Charity on the border town of El Paso, Texas. She was an unaccompanied minor from Guatemala who fled because of abuse and poverty. When she turned 18 and was released from foster care, she lived in community with the sisters. They invested in her by accompanying her and providing resources as she learned English and went to school to get her high school diploma. I remember that after failing her third GED test, she was at her lowest point. She told the sisters, "I give up. I don't want to do it anymore. I'll just stay this way forever." Do you think the sisters let her give up? Of course not. They saw in Jessica what we ought to see in one another, especially when we're not feeling our best. Her creativity and wits, her amazing abilities and intelligence far beyond any classroom can teach. The goodness in her heart and her unbreakable resolve displayed as a 14-year-old girl who braved the perilous migrant path to seek a life different from what she had. How could they let the world miss out on such a gifted person? They continued investing in her, and on her fourth try, Jessica passed her GED. She went on to become a medical assistant and was beloved by the doctors and patients that she worked with. She became a naturalized citizen, got married, and has 2 wonderful boys. One who is at the top of his class in middle school, and the younger one who is cute as can be just started pre-K. Jessica later transitioned into entrepreneurship, putting up 2 stores with her husband, a wonderful man who is also an immigrant from Salvador. They are treasures to their community, often holding outreach to those in their neighborhood that are struggling. When we invest in people, the return on our investments is fruitful and infinite, like the gift that keeps on giving. Let's dream up a government made up of leaders who put people at the center of policies. I ride the bus because I can imagine a United States of America where everybody has the opportunity to thrive, no exceptions, because its leaders believe that people are worth investing in. I ride the bus because when we invest in people, we invest in America. We invest in us. Thank you. And now let us welcome the Executive Director of Faith in Action, Bishop Dwayne Royster.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. And to Joan, Neal, Network, all the sisters that are gathered here, welcome to the city of brotherly love, sisterly affection, and kindred kindness. If there is one place where we ought to kick off a tour like this, it ought to be here in the city of Philadelphia, my hometown. I am Bishop Dwayne Royster, the Executive Director of Faith in Action, but for those of you in Philly, you might know me as the former Executive Director of a little organization called Power Interfaith. And so I am very excited to be back home today, to be here with you as we kick off this tour. I'm reminded that the work that we do every single day in the work of social justice is really about racial and economic justice on a livable planet. And we work at the intersection of everything that comes in between. So whether you're talking about housing or public education, whether you're talking about the environment, or whether you're talking about policies that are trying to prevent children from learning African American history in their schools, that political leaders make a difference in terms of whether those things happen or not. And so as we're gathering here today to talk about voting this election season, it's absolutely imperative that we make sure we encourage everybody that we run across to get out to vote. I'll give you an example of why voting makes a difference. This past year, Power Interfaith has been working on an 8-year campaign around public education funding here in the state of Pennsylvania. Some of you might be aware that there was a racial bias in the funding formula here in the state of Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, if you were to go back and really take a look at it, districts that had a preponderance of children of color were getting somewhere between $1,800 and $4,000 a year less from the state than all white school districts. That's a challenge. We began working on this some years ago. But if you were to add up the work and the difference where that money is going now. First of all, this past year, the Pennsylvania legislature passed a budget that included $1.1 billion in state education funding and put it through a formula that for the first time is actually providing some level of equity so that students in the Hispanic and Black and Asian districts are getting the same money that students in the white districts are getting. That's what happens when you vote. What happens when you vote is like what happens with our organization Isaiah in Minnesota, that in this last year passed 10 pieces of legislation that are totally transforming the state of Minnesota by providing child tax credit, supporting child care workers. If we say we're about families, then let's be about families, and let's provide for families so that they can raise their children to the best of their ability. But we also know what happens when you try to limit the vote of folk like in the state of Florida, where they passed some years ago legislation to allow returning citizens to be able to get the right to vote. And then as soon as that happened, the legislature in Florida did everything it can to prevent people from being able to vote who were returning citizens. What happened in the state of Florida? We find school districts being taken over by the governor. We find that now they're limiting the ability to not only teach African American history, but they don't even allow students to take advanced placement tests in African American history. But I'm proud of groups like Faith in Florida who said we're not going to let what happens in the State House prevent us from teaching African American history, and organize congregations, white and Black and brown, to teach African American history in the state of Florida, and are working with those same people right now to make sure that they are voting this election season. And finally, I have to say one more thank you to Network. In 2012, Pennsylvania was under a barrage of white Christian nationalist rhetoric and actions because of the gubernatorial election. And our siblings at Network met us up in the city of Scranton. And Power had a bus tour calling Keeping Faith in Democracy. And Network met us up in Scranton, and we did part of the tour together. So I thank all of you. I really want to thank Meg, who really was a part of that, Meg Olson, for making that happen. The reality is, my siblings, as we gather here today in Love Park, that we ought to operate from a place of love. For far too many people in the city of Philadelphia, across Pennsylvania, and across this country, they wake up every morning feeling like they're living in hell. Hell because they don't have enough food on the table. Hell because their children are in difficult education environments. Hell because they don't have health care. But the reality is that when people of faith, of all faith traditions, and people of moral courage stand up together, we have the capacity to change the damn world so that everybody is able to live a full and flourishing life. So I thank you, Network, for your work. I thank all of our colleagues. My colleague, Dr. Cassandra Gould, was standing somewhere there that's going to be doing this work with us, and will be on the bus. But I also thank you for getting the message out to your family and friends. Vote your values. Vote for our people to thrive and flourish. And vote so that there's peace in the land. Blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you. And allow me to introduce Mary Graham, who is coming at this time.
Good morning. I'm Mary Graham from Children's Village. I work for the future. For the last 48 years, I've been working in an early childhood and education center. Where did I get that passion? I got the passion from going to Catholic school. The values and the ideas of justice and equity were installed in me. They created an advocate. The people in the legislators don't always like what I have to say. Some of them listen, like Representative Bullock, because I will point out the injustice. How just is our country when we believe in public education when it starts at age 6? Yet we know that children learn at birth. But we don't support education at birth. We put that responsibility on the family. How just is it that we put that responsibility on the family at the beginning of their work life when they're making the least amount of money and they're paying for a service that costs more than college? So what do they have to do? They have to work 2, 3 jobs. They have to, if you're very poor in this country, we'll give you subsidized childcare. But there's no universal childcare in this country. Universal doesn't mean free, it means affordable. The federal government said a number of years ago childcare shouldn't cost more than 7% of somebody's wages. Let me tell you the story about our qualified teachers. Talk about justice, talk about equity. I have teachers who meet the same credentials as public school educators, and they make less than half. They work 12 months a year. They were so poorly paid in the past that they were eligible for the ACA, for health care. At our center, we believe in paying livable wages. What does that mean? It means they make more than minimum wage, but it also means they lose health care. So that responsibility goes on Children's Village, a nonprofit, where we spend more than $600,000 a year to pay for health care for 50 staff. We would do nothing but do that, but we can't afford that. $500,000 to pay our teachers more would be better. It also means they can't send their child to the center where they work. Why? Because I can't afford to give away childcare, just like Ford can't afford to give away a car to everybody who works for them. Childcare costs money. So I have a teacher. She's been with us for 20 years. She has a 2.5-year-old, and she's due to give birth at the end of this month. We have a dilemma. If she comes back, she needs a second job to pay for childcare to come to Children's Village. Is that just? Is that equitable? No. So what do we do at our center? We teach the whole child in context of supporting their needs, their nutritional, their educational, their social needs. Just as important to teaching numbers and letters, we teach about social justice. We teach children about compassion and equity and cooperation and getting along with others. That's just as important as the academic. But Noelle can't come back because she can't afford to pay 75% of her wages to come and bring her child to Children's Village. So what do? I'm going to lose one of the best teachers. Last week, the Philadelphia Inquirer had a wonderful editorial by a Philadelphia School District employee. Teachers everywhere are leaving, not just in public school, but in childcare. That editorial talked about we need childcare for the public school educators. We need childcare for their childcare people. We know because of the pandemic and the crisis that happened during COVID, we were a needed occupation. We're still needed. So when you go out, when you talk to your colleagues, when you talk to your employees, when I talk to the children at the center and their families, I talk about voting for the future. Vote with your conscience. Vote with your heart. Vote with what's important for you. The children are our future. The families are our future. And just as the last speaker said, this is a country who say we believe in family values. Where's paid medical family leave? We won't even start on that because that'll go on for another couple minutes. So, again, thank you for listening. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you, Nuns on the Bus. Thank you to the lessons I learned when I was a kid about honesty and justice and equity, which is not equality, just so you know. I want to introduce Marie Sampson II from the Clean Water Action. Thank you.
Well, good morning, and welcome to my home for those of you who are from out of town. This is Philadelphia. It is one of the greatest places you will ever visit. I've been standing here looking at this, here in Love Park, looking at this love statue for the last number of minutes. And I've just been thinking that that is what binds all of these issues together. It's our love for each other, it's our love for the planet, it's our love for the world that we want to see. Pope Francis has warned that climate change threatens the entire world population. Climate change is an equal opportunity pounder. You got me? No? We're good there. There we got it. We got it. We're good. We're good. We're good. It is an equal opportunity offender. It affects everybody in the world. There is no one, no matter what your race or your income is, that it does not have an impact on. Climate change is related to our addiction to fossil fuels and its pushers, the oil companies. In Philadelphia, climate change means that we have wetter, hotter summers. It means that we have freak weather incidences. I woke up one morning and turned the television, and the Vine Street Expressway was a bathtub. There was no hurricane that did that. It was a freak storm. There's going to be more of those. Wet, hot summers mean wet basements. It means black mold. It means exasperating the illnesses that are already there. Over the last several years, I've spent most of my work working in Philadelphia's poorest communities. I've been embarrassed at how much I thought they didn't know that they told me. Climate change has been in these communities for years. There is a savvy there that can only be appreciated for spending time working with those. They are poor. The poor is not stupid. As one of them once told me, it's not that we don't have the intellect, we don't have the resources. Voting is a critical thing for us to do. The threat to environment by the wrong vote, by the wrong election, is devastating. Already, in the first term, we have watched sacred laws and laws to deal with water already be overturned. The Supreme Court is in line. We not only need to vote to make sure that we get the right people in office, we need to also stick around and make sure that we support our elected leaders in getting the kind of legislation that we need to take care of things. I really want to thank you for bringing me here. This has been an amazing gathering. And vote. Be sure when you go to vote, bring a friend. Have that friend call a friend. Listen, there's 1 month from Election Day this next weekend. 1 month. All of us can do something every day to bring out somebody else to vote. Because if all of us bring out double our votes, we're going to win this thing. And that's the only way we need to go. Thank you so much. I also want to introduce Brendan Morrissey.
Can y'all hear me? How about now? Awesome. Okay. Hey, Philly. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Philadelphia. My name is Brendan Morrissey, and today I use the pronouns he and him. I'm an educator, and I serve as the co-chair of Glisten Philly, a Pennsylvania-based chapter working to keep our schools safe, especially for LGBTQ kids. I am concerned about what Project 2025 means for our students and for my community. Project 2025 is a dangerous roadmap that would slash funding for public school, codify state-sponsored bullying of marginalized youth, and rob the next generation of the freedom to learn, the freedom to simply be, and the opportunity to have a fair shot to get ahead. It should not matter where you come from or what your zip code is. Every child deserves a safe school. Every child deserves to learn in a place that is free from discrimination. Now, we know that in Pennsylvania, that hasn't been the case. Although schools here in Philadelphia have done great work to create inclusive spaces for LGBT students, we know that approach varies widely from county to county. I want to thank our partners at the School District of Philadelphia for their work on Policy 252 to support queer, trans, and non-binary students and support GSAs. However, some school boards in our Commonwealth have worked to ban books, dodge compliance with civil rights laws, and bully LGBT students in their districts. Who does that help? Whose agenda does that serve when kids in our cities and towns, our communities, can't feel safe to go to school and feel targeted by the very adults that are charged with making sure that they get an education? That is why I am so grateful for the current U.S. Department of Education that has moved to ensure common standard by strengthening Title IX's protections of LGBTQ students. It makes a difference when we can say in one clear voice that every school should be looking out for the well-being of every student, that all schools should be safeguarding the freedom to learn, because we know the sad but very real truth that when students are marginalized by their own schools, a place where they spend the most amount of their time outside of home, it impacts the students' perceptions of themselves. It diminishes their academic success. It isolates them from their community and adversely affects their mental health. If we want to invest in the next generation, we need to reject a culture of bullying and usher in a culture where everyone has worth, everyone has dignity, and everybody's potential is valued. But that's not what Project 2025 wants to do. This radical plan would target our freedoms. This radical plan would roll back civil rights protection. This radical plan would strip the federal government of tools to enforce civil rights laws, allowing school boards greater power to ignore and even bless discrimination within their districts. This radical plan would even dismantle the U.S. Department of Education. Can we take a second to think about what that means? Just a slice of the harm that would be done if that were to occur. Here in Pennsylvania receives hundreds of millions of dollars every year in Title I funding to shore up our schools. Project 2025 would phase out that federal funding and hand Pennsylvanians the bill. And that's not what we want. That's not what makes sense for our communities and our children's futures. We all have the responsibility now to educate ourselves on what's being proposed. The stakes are too high for us to be complacent or to bury our heads in the sand. We cannot be stunned into action. So Pennsylvania, read up, inform yourselves, and remember to vote, because our freedoms and our future and our children are on the ballot. Thank you. I'm excited to introduce you to Bailey Fingerhunt from Network.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bailey Fingerhunt, and I'm a junior at St. Joseph's University. Go Hawks! I'm originally from Schenectady, New York, and my passion for public policy led me to make the jump to Philadelphia to study at SJU. Oh, and the cheesesteaks are definitely an added plus. Last spring, I joined Network's Young Advocates Leadership Lab as a Sister Carol Costin Fellow. I'm one of Network's 10 Costin Fellows mobilizing young voters on Catholic college campuses across the country, and I'm privileged to lead the effort at St. Joe's. Every week, I speak with my peers about multi-issue voting. I go to classes to remind people of important election dates and voter ID information, and most importantly, I register students to vote. 2 weeks ago, on National Voter Registration Day, which was September 17th, I had the pleasure of hosting the Philadelphia Eagles defensive tackle Thomas Booker, the team's cheerleaders, and even Swoop at St. Joe's to join in our efforts to get students registered to vote and excited about hitting the polls in November. I joined Network's advocacy work because I believe in the grassroots initiatives. I'm a firm believer in investing in the democratic process and bringing about change from the ground up. My dad passed away from cancer when I was just 10 years old, and I witnessed firsthand the inequities in our healthcare system. Despite my dad losing his battle to cancer, my family was still plagued with financial concerns. Medical debt is the leading cause of bankruptcy for all people in the U.S., regardless of race. It makes me wonder, how can this be? As one of the most developed countries in the world, how are we leaving so many people behind? One of the things about a cancer diagnosis is it brings you into a community with so many others affected by this disease. There are people who have lost their parents, children, brothers, sisters, cousins, you name it, from all walks of life who the healthcare system has fundamentally failed. It's this experience that drives me to work for a future where no one has to watch a loved one deteriorate due to a lack of access to care. While my dad was able to have an amazing team of doctors and nurses, many are not as lucky, and fighting a disease is a multifaceted issue. When groceries become more expensive, how do you afford them in a newly one-income household after losing a loved one? What about if you're living in an area that's far away from a cancer treatment center? My family's experience formed my belief that we should all have access to the resources we need to thrive, regardless of the circumstances we face. No matter where you live, the color of your skin, the money in your pocket, we all deserve the freedom to be healthy. It is challenges like these that remind us of the importance of grassroots movements and illustrate why we need to be multi-issue voters. It's not enough to focus solely on healthcare. We must consider how economic policies, housing, and transportation all intersect to impact people's lives. By advocating for a broad range of issues, we can help create a more equitable society where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, especially those facing the most significant challenges. It has been such a privilege to equip my community at St. Joe's to register to vote and to provide them with nonpartisan voter education and resources. Every vote matters, and it is rewarding to remind students of that and to provide them with the space in which they can voice their policy issues, concerns, and questions. Network's commitment to equity, racial justice, and the common good reflects my belief that we must be well-rounded and informed citizens when casting our ballots. The most powerful tool we have to use is our vote. When we vote, whether we are young, old, black, brown, white, indigenous, rich, or poor, we unleash the power to bring about real change for our communities. Together, let's make our voices heard at the ballot box and work toward a future where justice and dignity are part of everyone's realities. Let's ensure everyone has the freedom to thrive, and let's vote our future. And I now have the honor of introducing Reverend Dr. Cassandra Gould.
Let's give it up for Bailey. Good morning, Philadelphia. We are in the city of sibling love, and we are happy to be here. Again, I'm Reverend Cassandra Gould. I have the privilege of serving at Faith in Action National Network. You heard from our director a few minutes ago, where I am the managing director of Power Building. I oversee our immigration work. Immigration is at stake in this moment. I also oversee our faith team. Faith is at stake in this moment. We got one narrative of faith, and it's not the right narrative. And so I am, as a black woman who's also a faith leader, as a parent, I am a multi-issue woman. I live a multi-issue life, and I have to be a multi-issue voter. And so when I got the call from Meg, and if Meg calls you, we all answer, to ask me, would I ride the bus for a week so that I could help them vote our future, it was a resounding yes. So let's give it up for the nuns on the bus, because they understand what is needed in this moment. You have heard what I would call in the prophetic black church tradition, the call. You've heard the call about our values for voting. You've heard the call about our vision for voting. Now it is your opportunity to respond. Right here in this city in 1984, Reverend Dr. Jesse Jackson, when he was running for president, he gave an iconic speech. And he said that we had a chance and a choice. I want to offer a 2024 remix on that. We have an opportunity and we have an obligation. We have an opportunity and an obligation in just 36 days to show up and vote. So this is the response. You have to pledge right now in front of God and everybody that you will use your obligation to engage in this sacred civic ritual known as voting. The ballot box is an equalizer. It is the place that young and old, queer and straight, black, white, and other people of color, rich and poor, city and suburban, rural and urban, all of us that are eligible, all of God's children get one vote. So we have an obligation. Our call to action today is for you, even right now, to make your voting plan, to decide when you're going to vote, where you're going to vote. The second thing is, I see some of you with your phones. Take your phone right now and put it in your hand. How many of you are like me? And you know some people that are less likely to vote than you are. Raise your hand if you at least know 1, 2, maybe 3 people. They're not sure about the issues. They're not sure about the candidates. They don't know if they have time. Your call to action is to send them a text. Send at least 3 to 5 people a text today and tell them, I want to help you make a plan for voting. Don't take any excuses. How many people are going to text 3 to 5 people? See, we've been talking about our values. Our values are basically about humanity and the freedom of all of God's children, right? In that same speech, Jesse Jackson said that unused votes were just like rocks laying around. I want you to take your rock. We know what rocks do, people of faith. Rocks actually knock out Goliath. Your vote is your rock in this season. Your vote is the rock that will knock out the Goliath that's trying to take democracy from us. Your vote is the rock that will knock out those who would seek to disenfranchise immigrants among us. Your vote is your rock that will seek to not have people housed in this country. Your vote is your rock, and we don't want to leave any rocks lying around. So you text those 3 to 5 people and you tell them, I'm going to help you take your vote so you can use your slingshot at the ballot and knock out everything that will seek to keep us from the freedom that God desires for all of us. Don't let your vote be a rock just laying around. Anybody know where some rocks are just laying around? Take those votes, get them to the ballot box, and make sure they vote. Finally, I want you to have a ballot party. I want you to download the ballot. You can get it from Nuns on the Bus, the local women's vote League of Women Voters. You can get it from the Power Office. Get that ballot. Know everything on it, up and down ballot. Have a virtual party or invite people over for tea, coffee, or your favorite beverage. And share with them what is on the ballot so that we will not be rocks just lying around waiting for people to kick us to the curb at will. Will you promise me that you will go out and do that so that this bus tour might not be in vain? Yeah, let's take those rocks. Let's shoot our best shot. And now you also get to sign the bus. Let's thank all of our speakers who've been here with us today. Thank all of you for showing up. Rocks will not just be lying around. Come and join us by signing the bus and follow and support Nuns on the Bus. God bless you.